Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is watching this particular presentation from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Africa Matters Ambassadors Program Community Engagement Project presentations. We are so happy to have you join us today as we hear about the phenomenal work that is being done by our program participants, and to actually see the work of young African leaders within their communities and the initiatives that they are driving on the ground to really create change at the regional level across the continent. I am Laika Martin. I am the Africa Matters Ambassadors Program lead, and I will be introducing you to the bones and the structure of today's program, and will then hand over to my colleagues to really touch on the various elements of the program and this particular element of the community engagement project. So if we can move over to the agenda, please. So today's session will focus on this particular element of the AMAP program, which is the community engagement project. I will hand over to one of my colleagues to really touch on what exactly this component of AMAP really is all about and what exactly it is meant to do and serve. Then we will go into the main meat of this particular session, which is the presentations. So our ambassadors who have worked quite hard over the last few months to really implement community-centric projects, they will be presenting on the work that they have done over the last few weeks and months, and actually showing their journey as community leaders in implementing these projects. So we will have all of our ambassadors today actually present on their work. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A session for those who are in attendance to share either questions to their fellow ambassadors or the ambassadors of the program, or provide any sort of insight, suggestions, or any sort of things that they can take moving forward as they grow these projects from the projects that they are into full-fledged initiatives and programs in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Stuart Morrison, who will touch on the overview of the community engagement projects. Over to you, Stuart.
Thanks so much, Laika, and welcome everyone to this very, I think, special, occasion where we get to share some of the projects. So what the Community Engagement Project is, it's one of the core components of the Africa Matters program. And it's really about giving the ambassadors the opportunity to apply practically the skills that they have learned and the development that they've grown into over the past several months. And so the Community Engagement Project not only serves as this opportunity for our ambassadors to learn, but also it allows them to really assist and engage their communities. And so in this way, we're not just necessarily impacting our ambassadors, but our reach extends to their communities. And so we're hoping that the skills and the growth that the ambassadors have gone through over the past few months are then able to be transferred into the communities, so that we build up these networks of leaders and change makers within different communities across the African continent. So that's just a little bit about the Community Engagement Project. We'll now pass over to my colleague, Kedi Bone, who will kind of just share with us the structure of the presentations and who's going to be presenting.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for that. Indeed, once again, this is the second phase of the presentation where the ambassadors will be reflecting on their community engagement projects. So the structure of the presentation will go like in this manner. I'll call upon the presenters for the day, and then once all the presenters have presented their community engagement projects, that's when we'll open the floor for members of the people that have attended the session to ask any questions, any comments, any advice, any reflection of what you have learned from the presentation. So without actually wasting any time, we will get into the bits and the nitties of the day. And the first speaker for today will be Kobamelo, and we will be sharing the presentation on our screen, or do you prefer to share that on your screen? Kobamelo, are you on the call?
Hi, hello, good evening.
Okay. So we'll share the presentation on behalf.
No, you may kindly share my presentation.
Okay, so I'll give our technical person a couple of minutes just to view a presentation. And once the presentation is viewing, then you can start your presentation. And you only have 15 minutes, the presentation, and let's just be cognizant of time. But I'll still keep reminding you. Okay, there it is. So Kobamelo, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for uploading. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all ambassadors and the AMAP team. My name is Kobamelo Thomas from Botswana, and my project is Project Adopt a Girl, empowering females to unleash their full potential. We can move to the third slide. The third slide. Yeah, bro. Okay. So in Botswana, it is a norm in our society that which simply is to say that females are not to lead or cannot be in a position to lead, to be in authority and stuff like that. So, and this norm has killed off the dreams of many young girls, many young females, just from an early age, because they grow up with this mentality that they cannot grow. I think they cannot lead, or they cannot be in any position to be leaders, to be authority, or just to be powerhouses. So they just grow up knowing that, you know what, I'm just gonna be a follower. I'm gonna be a follower. I follow, I don't lead. So next slide. So having noticed this gap or this matter in my community, I came up with the project Adopt a Girl as a response to breaking this norm that is inhibiting young girls from an early age from getting into positions of power or getting into unleashing their full potential. We may continue. So sorry for that. So Project Adopt a Girl, in executing this project, a secondary school in my community, I adopted a secondary school in my community, the focus group being young adolescent girls, especially those in the completing classes, because now they're going out into the world to face life. So they need to have certain skills, certain knowledge on how they're going to tackle life out there. And these sessions we're focused on the completing and lower classes, and which we address them on various topics tailored for them, tailored for their age. For instance, as I mentioned, that as we focused on the completing classes, we gave them like life skills or information on how now that they're joining society, they'll no longer be in school. How are they going to pass time? How are they going to continue with time, instead of so that to defer them from, doing bad stuff or anything illegal, or just, yeah. As for the lower classes, we just wanted to prepare them as they are now transitioning to another stage, or that transitioning to a higher level of education. We're just preparing them for the next level. And topics ranged from personal development, soft skills, and sexual reproductive health. Next slide. The next one. Okay. Now, looking at the project success, I would say that in implementing or rolling out this project, I managed to implement all the phases of the project that I had written out or planned out in my timeline or the scheduling of the project. And I can confidently say that the project met its scope, focus group, and cost goals. Looking at the fact that the objectives of the project were met, I was able to share some skills, impart some knowledge in young girls, mentor some young girls into actually believing that they can unleash their full potential, that they can actually become the future leaders of tomorrow. Nothing is inhibiting them from leading, nothing is inhibiting them from being change makers in their community. They too have that potential. So all in all, I can say that my project, Project Adopt a Girl, has met or successfully achieved its objectives. Next slide. Okay, we all know that when you're implementing a project or planning a project, there are gonna be some obstacles, challenges, or failures along the way. And in implementing this project, the first failure is that we failed to comply to anticipated project timeline or schedule. Initially, like from the very, very beginning, I had intended on starting off or implementing this project around June, but then there was some, since I was completing school and I had a lot of work, at school and other stakeholders, like for instance, yes, okay, it was just basically me. I had like a lot of work, so tackling between my work and AMAP was a bit of a challenge. So I failed to maintain or I failed to comply to the timeline that I had set out to implement the project. Another conflict was time conflict. Yeah, another issue was time conflict. This was the time conflict arose from between me and the schools that I had adopted. Because every time I would check up on them when I had time, you'd find out, okay, that they have exams or they have some activities, so I can't implement my project. Or another issue to arise that I had school, so most of my time would be at school, and the moment I find time to go there, they're also held up with something at the school that I had adopted. So that kind of like was a barrier or was a limitation to my project. And then we had an issue of poor communication. My project, we're adopting a school. So oftentimes I'll send out I'll send out a letter to the school asking for permission or requesting for permission to implement my project at the school. And yes, I would do follow-ups, but then they'll keep on delaying to get back to me. They'll keep on delaying. So this kind of pushed back my project because they will be delaying me. Next slide. Okay, project highlight. When you're implementing something that is bringing a positive change to the community, that is obviously going to benefit somebody out there, I would say my highlight, the project highlight was my big moment to just seeing this project to come to life and getting a positive response from the participants was really amazing, because this project has been a roller coaster of emotions, because at some point I just wanted to give up. The work was overwhelming, having to balance between life, school, and the project itself. So when I saw the project actually coming to life and people actually responding to it positively, I was like, wow, this is actually amazing and this is actually refreshing. So that was my project highlight. Next slide. Okay, project evaluation. In total, this project was able to impact 60 schooling adolescent girls, both from completing classes and the lower class. The school that I had adopted at first, I managed to address the completing classes, but had to cut short it because now they were getting into the examinations. So I was forced to adopt another school in which I was able to address the lower class. So I can say that this project was able to empower girls into fully understanding the potential they have by boosting their confidence, esteem, self-worth, and just to know that they too can be change makers, they too have it in them. It's not only males who can actually change the world or who can actually lead, they too can be change makers. They too have it in them to actually do something for their community. Next slide. So for betterment of this project, in order to improve my project going on or in the future, I will not only be focusing on adolescent girls who are in school, but I'll also try to involve those who have been cast out of society. For instance, young girls from juvenile centers or those who are not able to proceed to college, because it's not everybody who's going to make it to varsity or college. So the aim is to recommit them to society by equipping them with skills to help themselves so that they don't have to depend on other people, or they don't have to like give up on themselves. So you know what, I have failed in life, therefore I cannot uplift myself, or I cannot stand on my own feet. So the next step of the project now is to be focusing on girls in the community at large, not those only in school. By this time around, since this phase, the first phase, was just in theory, you know, this time around it will be more practical. We'll be giving young girls practical skills that they can help themselves with. Next slide. Yes, what's next? Yes, as I had already mentioned, that the next step is to recommit female juvenile delinquents into society, and those who have not been able to proceed to college or institutions of higher learning with practical skills that they can use to improve their livelihood, and also initiate a project that also addresses the other gender, because okay, there are a lot of movements, a lot of projects that are focusing on empowering the girl child, but what about the boy child? The boy child also needs to be empowered, also needs to be uplifted, okay? Just because they are boys doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have, or they don't need to be empowered. They too are going through certain things that need to be addressed, just as the female. So yeah, the next is also to initiate a project that also includes the other gender. Next slide. Yes, in concluding my presentation on my project, I can just say big up to Africa Matters Initiative and the AMAP team for this platform. I could say that you guys have been the launching pad for me to stepping out of my comfort zone and actually bringing my vision, my dreams to a reality. And I also express gratitude to my family, my friends, they were my greatest support system and also my facilitators. Their sacrifice and heart for voluntary work is very, very commendable. With that being said, I would like to close off my presentation with a little clip that I had prepared for, to add on to my presentation. It's just a sum up of my project. So can you kindly play the clip?
Let's allow our host to find the clip so that she will be able to play it.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, there it is.
I'm not sure if it's just me, but I can't hear any sound if there is.
Yeah, it's not audible.
Okay, just give me a sec.
Can you hear now?
No.
Are you able to hear?
No, I don't hear any sound.
Still nothing.
I'm not doing it. Maybe stop sharing, and then when you share it again, just make sure that the settings are all right.
Okay.
Apologies for the delay, everyone. I just want to make sure that we're able to share the video.
I can't seem to be playing it through my laptop. The alternative is that I play through, I mute myself, I play the audio through my phone, and then you just watch the video. I'll share my screen again. It's a bit sus, but it's okay. It should work.
Yeah, whatever works. That's fine.
Hopefully it works.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for that. Despite the technical issues, your video was lovely. And thank you very much, Kobamelo, for your presentation. Also, despite the project failures for your CEP, we are happy that you managed to implement and execute your project at the end of the day. And also investing in young women's economic empowerment or skills development is really one of the most urgent and effective means to drive progress on gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. So the next speaker will be Adama. Adama, I hope you're ready. And we'll also give time for our technical guy to be able to maneuver your slides. Adama, are you ready?
Yes. Hello,
Oh,
good evening.
Evening, Adama. You have 15 minutes. You can proceed.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I am Adama Borway from Sierra Leone, and my project is Lifelong Skills Training for Youth. The name of my organization is Youth Empowerment Forum Sierra Leone. Next slide, please. Okay, so basically in Sierra Leone, the rate of unemployment is so high, based on the studies from UNDP since 1999 to 2020. So this has caused a lot of problems amongst youth who are like the victims of all these, and the main people are actually suffering from unemployment in Sierra Leone. So this has actually led youth into perpetrating violence against themselves in schools, in their communities, wherein creating service politicians who use them and pay them to like perpetrate violence against their political opponent. And these youth are highly involved into drugs abuse. Gender-based violence is another problem, and school dropout, of course, because when they go to school, they form clubs that they usually call cliques to fight against like each other in the schools, cause problems, and disturb schooling for others. So definitely they've been driven out of school, and that has caused a lot of school dropouts in various communities in Sierra Leone. Next slide, please. So because having seen this problem in our community and in Sierra Leone as a whole, so I thought of like coming together with my colleagues youth to find a solution to these problems in our going on, like that are affecting youth. So for the past years, I and some of my colleagues, we've been going to doing community outreach, sensitizing youth on violence, and also doing radio programs, going to schools. We're doing school tours to sensitize youth on violence, drugs abuse, and the likes. So we've been doing that for like 4 to 5 years, and so we finally thought in 2018 that, okay, so these youths, as a saying normally goes, and I do mind is a devil's workshop. So we need to do something very sustainable, wherein the youth, they can be financially independent, and stop depending on government to provide jobs for them, so they can have they can support themselves. So yeah, we thought of the livelihood skills training, wherein we train youth, and they'll be they have sustainable skills they will use, that will expose them to job opportunities, and of course they are to build their capacity, and reduce the rate of violence perpetrated in the community, because they will be busy and all. So we thought of starting the livelihood skills training to empower youth in various communities, in communities that are highly communities that are highly marginalized, or have this youth living in their So we also create a community mobilization schemes against gender-based violence via radio programs and also community engagement outreaches. So we also develop entrepreneurship programs to create jobs, wherein after the livelihood skills training, we get people that are expertise to come and like train the youth in entrepreneurships and also create opportunities for them, create job opportunities for them in that area. Next slide, please. So, well, after I was successfully like accepted into the Africa Matters Ambassadorship Program, there were challenges before then. So now I was funded with, of course, I was given a seed funding to start my community project, to implement my community project. So we actually select one of the highly marginalized community in Kono district, which is the Kete community. And the training was successfully implemented, and currently we have 20 youths that are going through the weaving and Gara tie-dye training. And also we collaborated with Global Pictures because they saw the work we are doing for youth and also our plans. So we collaborated with them. And we secured a training center because to get a training center in the past years was a big issue. So we secured a training center given to us by the community leaders. Next slide. Yeah, so of course we have a lot of challenges, but few we are highlighted on these presentations. We have like numerous challenges, but like the main one that are so urgent and one lack of like training materials. Of course, we were supposed to have 4 training programs: the weaving, soap making, Gara tie-dyeing, and also the Ankara designs. But because of the lack of training materials and because the lack of training materials, and also we weren't able to go through the 4 training programs. And port training space, as you can see on this picture, this is the place we actually have our trainings. This place was so bushy, we had to come together, and all the youth in the community have to come together to actually cut down the grass. And we have like 2 rooms, one for the guy, then one for the weaving. The weaving is open, no doors and all. So we have port training space and also limited qualified trainers. We have only 2 people. Actually, I think volunteering is a big issue. It's only when money is involved, then people will come on board. So we have only 2 who said, okay, we are ready to dedicate our time and we are ready to dedicate and share our knowledge to youth in this community. So we have 2 training qualified trainers. Next slide, please. Yeah, the impact, we've trained 20 women and girls in Gara tie-dyeing and weaving. We have like 1% men. That's I think that's another challenge we forgot to highlight on the challenges, because a lot of men do not show up on things like this. They find it oh no, it's just a skills training and it will be hardness for us to show up. And yeah, in fact, so we have 5 participants that are now trainers of trainees, and that's a very good thing, on our side, because now we can have more trainers. So we did the trainings for like 2-3 weeks, and also requested who are the people that want to be trainers, that wish to like volunteer to train, because we wouldn't be able to pay, but willing to volunteer to train their colleagues that are coming after this first set. And so we have 5 people that say, okay, we will come on board, and we are ready to go through another training programs. We are ready to go to months and, if possible, a year training program, so that we can train up people in this community and other community as we, as this program, live as long as this program continue. So we have five trainers of trainees that we train, and they are now trainers of trainees. And we have 20 youths that are already exposed to job opportunities. And these youths, as you can see on these pictures, they are all exposed right now to job opportunities. Anybody can hire them, and they can go to train in any training centers. They can be paid, or they can choose to volunteer to help their community in their country as a whole. Next slide. So our memorable moment, one is reflection of the project impact. That was a memorable moment with have the trainers, the trainees, and also the team. Everybody said their mind where they were and how the project has impacted them, and how they are seeing them, and now how they are seeing themselves now, the potential they have. They never thought they can have, they never thought they can learn any skill. They never thought they can actually learn something that can maybe generate finance for them. So yeah, that was one of our memorable moments. And and these youths they met some young motivated women and girls that we brought to them to come and talk to them. And as the training was going on, we came with some motivated and empowered youth, young girls and women, to come and talk to them, to be inspired, to just inspire them that if we can, then you can as well. So, and we have one-to-one discussions with them. I was there and I have one-to-one discussions with them, because to change, to empower people, you actually want to know how they feel and how they see maybe the project, or what the project you're implementing, how they see it and how they are thought of it, what their expectations is. So the one-on-one discussions we have with them was another memorable moment. Next slide. So steps to improve. Okay, next. Oh my goodness. Project alleviation. So yeah, just like the impact. So community skills training program, of course, yeah, the program is already, this is something we are planning to do for years to come, and planning to impact more young people in our community. Planning to empower more young people, over 1,000 in years to come and all. So community engagement about the importance of livelihood skills training, we are on it right now. We are telling the people the importance of the importance of livelihood skills training, because a lot of people, when we visited and engaged the community, we engaged the youth, we engaged the leaders, a lot of people showed interest. But as the training started, a lot of them started going back, a lot of them started like withdrawing from the training program. So where we were left with 20. So a lot over 50 people said, okay, when we came, okay, everybody was just coming to collect forms, and we registered over 50 people, but at the end, a lot of them withdraw. So we are planning, and we are on it to get a community engagement to tell them about the importance of livelihood skills training. So yeah, and we have 5 participants. I just spoke about that. We have 5 participants that are now trainers of trainings, and that is one of our greatest highlights. Next slide. So steps to improve. Yeah, we have more. We want to have more qualified facilitators in training space. Like you also saw the training space in the previous slide. We want to have a conducive training space. Yeah. And as much as we want to train the youth, we want them to get the impact, but we want this training to happen in a very conducive space, and also to be trained by qualified facilitators, not just to come and have training, oh, okay, let's just come and do tie-dye in any way, or let's just come and do this in any way. But we are planning to have something very tangible, something very sustainable for youth. So to train 50 youth in the next 3 months, this training is going to continue for like 6 months. So in the next 3 months, we want to train over 50 youth. We have 20 that are still going through the trainings. Some, like we said, they are trainers of trainees now. And in the next 3 months, we want to train another 50 sets of youth through various skills programs. And we want to get more training materials, like in the area. A lot of them, when they started the training, a lot of them were saying they want to be trained in tailoring, and to get the machines, it's a very difficult thing. So we want to get more training materials in the coming months or year, so that we can attract more youths to come on board. Yeah, next slide. Next slide, okay. So next step, we are lobbying for like funding opportunities, and also, like I said in the previous slide, we want to train more 50 youths in the next 3 months and have a convenient training space. Next slide. Yeah, acknowledgement. Of course, Africa Matters Ambassadorship Program team. I am so grateful for the encouragement, for actually helping me to unleash my potential. For the past month and here, it has been so difficult to even implement my project. To implement the project was a very difficult thing. So I want to say a very big thank you to the Africa Matters Initiative Program for the AMAP team. I'm so grateful, especially thanks to Laika for your support, your constant engagement, constant calling and all. Thank you so much. And also to EFSL, our team, they have been so amazing. They have been doing so well. And also, of course, the community leaders for welcoming us in their community, for opening their hands to us in their community, because there is a chauvinism in a lot of communities in Sierra Leone that, these people are coming to exploit us and go. So a lot of them frown against projects. So, they are coming here to exploit us and go. So I'm so happy it was not that difficult to talk to them that this is not what you think it is. This is the project to empower our colleagues youth in this community. So I am so happy for their welcome in the community. And yeah, of course, I'm so happy for everybody on this particular slide for their contributions in one way or the other. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Next slide. Yeah, so this is our team. Me, of course, Adama Borway. I'm in the pink, and I'm the project coordinator. And we have Mohamed Alpha. He has been holding it down for us. I heard about the project, and he said, okay, I can help to come in. So so Mohamed Alpha and also Doris Sokofili is one of the community members who said, I have children, and also I learned this skill years back during the war, and I've been training people even after the war. So I have the skill, I know it, I have my documents, my papers. So yes, of course, I am ready to impact my knowledge into the youth in this community. Yeah, next slide.
Adama.
So yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adama, for the presentation. And youth unemployment remains a significant problem across Africa, with the rise in population adding new layers of complexity to the challenge. So it is a priority to combat unemployment because it provides economic opportunity, especially having a job, and it's one of the most powerful predicators of good health. So a stable job with a fair pay leads to a better health. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mary-Anne. Mary-Anne, are you ready? We'll give the technical guy some few minutes to share your slides. Okay, the floor is yours, Mary-Anne. 50 minutes starts now. Mary-Anne is still there. Mary-Anne, we can't hear you. Mary-Anne seems to be experiencing some technical issues. So while we wait her to connect, can we please move on to another speaker? And the next speaker will be Musa. Musa once the host.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We'll just wait to share the presentation, then we can proceed. Okay, Musa, the floor is yours.
All right. So thank you, everyone. Good evening once more. My name is Musa Kondeh. I am from Sierra Leone. So I'll be presenting on my project this evening. So we move to the next slide, please. With the problem statements about my project, in Sierra Leone, there is a lack of support for young people, most especially those that are transitioning from school level to the workforce. Of course, 80% of students lack the knowledge and skills necessary to take up leadership positions in their community. And young people, especially in high schools, are unable to identify the skills needed for job prospects. And additionally, there is no components for practical soft skills in our school curriculum. Most of the topics covered in the school setting is more on a theory basis. There's no practical curriculum where most pupils can learn the soft skills that would help them in transitioning from even the secondary schools to the university or the workforce. Next slide, please. So my solution, my project is a youth up training. It's a workshop that was coordinated in one of the schools here in my community, Makeni. My community engagement project is a youth up network. It's a youth-led initiative that empowers young people to make positive change in their personal and professional lives. So the training was more focused on the developing young people for a personal and a professional development. The CP was focused on mentorship and training that influence behavioral change and increase self-awareness. It was conducted on the 16th of November, where 35 school-going children between 15 and 24 years old benefited from educational presentations, peer-to-peer learning, and mentorship with outstanding young leaders and youth activists that served as facilitators for the training. And at the end of the workshop, certificates of participation was awarded to each and every participant. Next slide, please. So successes that I gained during the project was the workshop was attended by all selected participants, including 5 others who requested space on the day of the training. For this, most of the time when you conduct trainings where in the form of workshop where participants will not be having a monetary benefit, most of them tends to run away from short training, and most of the time you have less participants than you expected. So for my own training, all the selected participants attended, so that's a kind of success for me. And during the CEP recap session, and during the recap session, participants were able to clearly explain what they learned and express their willingness to put it into practice. So during the training, we conducted a recap session at the end of the training where every participant was able to come up and explain what they learned, which shows that they really are able to grab the knowledge that we shared, and they all expressed willingness to kind of put it into practice. And as a result of the learning outcome, the participants requested that we conduct another session in the school. So requesting for another session shows that there is an increase in their quest for short training, and it's a kind of success that attending our training makes them want to attend more of training that would empower them both professionally and personally as well. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges I faced during the implementation of this particular training was, first of all, it was a delay in receiving the seed funding, which forced me to postpone the events during the planning stage. During the planning stage, there was some kind of delay in the receiving the fund, and which forced me to actually postpone the events, and that was frustrating, of course, and it was inconvenience for the partners, the facilitators, because all of them has their own other schedules. Then they have to rechange their plan and their calendars just to fit in within this particular activity. And of course, there was a source that I initially should have got a projector at a free cost, gifted, but unfortunately, due to all these delays, and I have to pay a rental fee to get it on the postponed date. So that was another challenge for me. And of course, during the day of the workshop, we started 2 hours after the stipulated time due to technical difficulties with electricity, because we were using a public school. So there was some challenges in trying to get access to electricity directly in the classroom that we used. So these are some of the challenges we faced during the project implementation. Next slide, please. So for the most memorable moments was during the distribution of the certificates and the group photo shoot. It was kind of amazing, and I felt emotional seeing all these young people kind of have smile in their faces. Most of them, this is their first time getting a certificate out of school without their academic results, getting a certificate that will boost up their resumes, and also attending the short training, even though it's a one-day training, but they felt very happy, and they were joyful, and it was expressed in their faces during the certification and the photo shoot. So that was a very memorable moment for me in the whole project implementation. So next slide, please. So yeah, for the project impact, so it changed the mindset of the participants towards their career and their personal development through life skills and effective career planning. This project was able to kind of change the mindset of the young people who participated in the training towards their career and towards their personal development, because most of the topic covered were on life skills and personal development, self-esteem, goal setting. So all these topics was able to change their mindsets, and it was able to change their perspective towards the personal development. It gives them a clear vision towards personal development and career development as well. The projects enable the participants to learn about personal development, self-esteem, goal setting, life skills, and the first time in their life. So this was the first time most of them expressed and confirmed that this is the first time for them to attend a short training, and they find it very useful and towards their career and towards their personal development. The project also helped the participants to learn about leadership and essential skills for effective leadership. So we kind of incorporate a session on leadership during the training, which in order to get the participants to gain knowledge on the leadership, especially for community participation, for community engagement, so that they will be able to contribute towards their community through volunteerism and also take up leadership role in the society. So this project actually help the participants to gain the kind of leadership skills that will help them to practically implement their take up leadership roles in the society and in their community as well. So next slide, please. So how the project will be improved. So this project will be improved by establishing partnership with other youth-focused organizations and in order to implement a larger scale. So I felt that if we are able to partner with other youth-focused organizations, especially around Sierra Leone and in our community, then we'll be able to implement the project in a very large scale, of course, which would create a lot of, which will improve the project, and bigger impacts will be created. And also additional funding that will greatly improve the project. So like with additional funding, this first time we targeted 35 participants. So which with additional funding, we'll be able to target like at least 100 participants, which will be a huge success, which will greatly improve the project, and especially we'll be able to target participants from other schools, around my community, which would improve the impact of the project and improve the whole project as well. Next slide, please. So the next step is that I want to put together a very passionate and efficient team of young people who would serve us in the various capacities to ensure the initiative continue to run. Yeah, so like I want to ensure that I get a very passionate team of young people in order to get a sustainable organization, because actually with all the impact the project created and with what I envision out of the whole initiative, I actually want to ensure that I put together a team of young people in order to continue running the organization and the initiative. I also want to develop a standard curriculum that will be delivered to young people as part of this project going forward. So these are the next steps that I plan. Next slide, please. Yeah, so finally, for acknowledgements, I want to extend a sincere gratitude to the Africa Matters Initiative for your continued support and all the amazing work you've done so far, and all the impact you've created in my life personally, and also giving me this impact and allowing me to pass it on to other young people in my community. I really, really appreciate all that, and more especially to our team lead, Swart. It was amazing having you and at every beck and call. So thank you very much to the AMAP team, and also a big thanks to my co-facilitators, Aminata Kamara, who is one of the facilitators, and also Kelvin Kamara. They were a colleague, and they were amazing during the whole training session. And thanks to the school that allowed me to implement the project in their space, which is the Oxford International Secondary School. And with all their supports, I was able to finally pull out this project, and I thank God for everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Musa, for that. Indeed, all youth need to develop a set of core skills, to be able to manage school, work, outside interest, or social relationships to be successful. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
The next speaker is Mary-Anne. I know that Mary-Anne will be able to present.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mary-Anne.
Okay, perfect. That's great.
Okay.
So I'm going to start now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary-Anne Zinda, and I am an AMAP ambassador based in Johannesburg in South Africa. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a bit of terminology. Can someone go to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are a few of the terms I'm going to use throughout the presentation so I can make it quick. When I refer to a female, I refer to a cisgender female. Okay, so this is someone who's born and identified as a female. And then SID is one of the terms I'll be using. So it's a severe intellectual disability, and this is a functional level of a person who's in grade 5, so around the age of 8 and 10. When I say an ELSIN school, that's a school based for learners with special educational needs. And when I refer to DCAPs, I'm talking about the syllabus. That is the generic syllabus in South Africa for learners, but within a special needs school, it's called DCAPs. It's like a modified version. And then I'll be addressing the issue of period poverty, which obviously is the lack of resources to experience a healthy menstrual cycle. The project is named LOVE because it stands for Ladies of Value and Empowerment. It's about bringing pride to the learners with disabilities. So that's why it was named. I was just trying to honor them and who they are. Someone go to the next slide. Okay, so we'll have an intro, execution of the CEP, evaluation of the CEP, and conclusion. And then someone go to the 4th slide. The next one. Okay, so my project was completed within Tembisa, which is a township in the northeastern side of Johannesburg in South Africa. So I was targeting a school that I currently work at, and it's a school for special needs. It's the ELSIN school. Reason being, I targeted Tembisa rather than any other school, and the school I worked in was because there's a low socioeconomic status within that area. A lot of kids come from homes where most parents haven't even completed a matric or A levels, as some countries would say. So there's a high level of illiteracy, there's low resources, there's not enough money for this. But I started noticing within my work setting that some of the girls were coming to school, and every other odd day they would pop into the office and ask the sister for pads. So I then thought maybe this would be a good idea just to start something that not only raises awareness, but also supplies sanitary products. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so looking at this in a very holistic perspective, why it's important to supply sanitary products to girls, teenage girls with disabilities, right? So the reason why I looked at this issue was because we see a lot of girls having a high dropout rate in school. And sometimes it's actually due to not having enough resources or being able to participate in society, because people with disabilities are highly marginalized. And then we add the fact that they're females, which makes it even more the rate higher. And then also because of your menstrual cycle, it's not fair for you to miss school. So we see a high rate of absenteeism. And also the fact that there's stigma. Within the community I'm working in, there's a lot of stigma for learners with disabilities, especially intellectuals. Can you go to the next slide? So these are just the facts that you should know about how not being able to experience a healthy menstrual cycle affects people, right? So in South African schooling, we have about 200 days of schooling, right? Out of 365 days in a year. Of those 200 days, girls are estimated to miss out about 90 days of schooling. That's close to more than half of the days of schooling, okay? then we see that on average, a female will experience the menstrual cycle for about 70 days in a year, right? And that impacts their engagement within society. So they're unable to integrate into society where they can learn skills that will harness them within their work experience or engagement within the places they come from, right? So the estimate is that 3 out of 10 girls actually miss school because of their menstrual cycle, and that's a high rate. And then next slide, please. How I actually addressed the issue is I used 4 perspectives. I was like, okay, how am I going to address the issues? I looked at the activities I could do. So I could carry out educational workshops with the girls to improve their knowledge about what a menstrual cycle is. Reason being that the DCAP syllabus actually doesn't go that in depth, and not a lot of educators or teachers are actually trained in how to work with learners with disabilities. So I carried out workshops with them. I carried out about 5 workshops with them. And then the goal was obviously within the project to raise awareness about what the girls are experiencing, but amongst themselves to empower them, but also acquiring donations from sponsors that could benefit the girls, right? So why this was important is the fact that we're trying to make sure that there's accessibility to basic resources, which is obviously engagement within school, because everyone in the Constitution of South Africa, it says everyone deserves a right to an education, right? So that's why. And then the other method I used also was partnering. So I partnered with role players within the school that would possibly help me or be able to continue with the project if necessary, not needing my input. So I work with the school nurse and the social worker, okay? Then next slide. So now this is the execution of the CEP and some of the successes and challenges I came across, right? So my successes, I completed 5 sessions, okay? So I achieved all my goals, what I set out to do to empower the girls. Number 2, I got donations and seed money, which was very much grateful because it alleviated a bit of my stress and it kind of started the foundation of the project, right? And then number 3 was the girls' participation and the level of engagement within the project, right? So I was not expecting a lot of girls to come, but sometimes I'll have a group of 14 and then a whole lot of them will just come in. I'll be sitting there with 24 learners and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. So it was really nice to engage with them and them willing to want to engage with me as well. Because it is a very touchy subject to talk about. Not a lot of parents talk about menstrual cycles with their kids or anything to do with sexual reproduction or anything like that. My challenges was getting consent. Because I'm working with vulnerable population, I need informed consent from the parents, right? I cannot work with them without that because I would face a lot of legalities, right? So that was challenging to get. So I had to like almost about over a month try to get these in these consent forms, right, from the parents. And then second challenge I came across was the scheduling and timetable. So initially I was supposed to obviously have started around August, September, but because of certain backlashes, like we had a lot of school events happening within our school setting, we had a lot of protest action happening. So we did miss out a big chunk of completing the workshops, which later on I had to complete much later than what was scheduled. And then the third challenge was the venues. So I would usually do it in the classroom, but then I started noticing that some of the girls struggled to engage because their teacher would be in the room. And that made it very uncomfortable. There's a bond we have within as a clinician, we call it a rapport, like you develop a rapport with them. So I then would move them rather outside, but trying to get a space to work in that was more like for confidentiality was very much a challenge. However, I made it work. And I didn't want like educators to interrupt the sessions because then there was no point in doing them. So next slide. Okay, so my memorable moment, I would say basically everything from get-go, all the stresses, everything, all the hard work, when it all tied in together, I was so happy. I was like, I finally feel blessed. But basically for me, it was everything. It was the girls learning the knowledge and applying the knowledge. If you understand how girls between the ages of 16 and 21 are like, right? They're going through puberty, and because they function at a level of an 8 to a 10-year-old, it's very hard for them to understand the complexities of the body. But when they start thinking and they start applying the knowledge, it's just an amazing moment, because then you start learning more. And I actually learned more from the girls than I learned from myself, that they learned from me, because they would share experiences that I'd never had ever come across or experienced in my life. So that was very valuable for me. And then you can go to the next slide. So the evaluation of the CEP, next slide. Sorry. So the impact, it impacted about 80% of the girls, because as I said, I was working with 42 girls. 42 girls attended the sessions, and it was at the average of 80%. Obviously, some of them had to miss because of school engagements most times. So I couldn't work for my 100% rate. And then how did I obviously alleviate this issue? I think I accomplished it around about 75%, because I did do a bit of period poverty awareness with the girls and improving their knowledge, and also the accessibility to resources. And then that later on minimizes absenteeism, because that was the whole point. We're trying to ensure that they get that access to education. And then how could I improve the project? So there's various ways I could improve the project, but one of them is, as I spoke about earlier, the syllabus in South Africa for learners with disabilities is called DCAT, and it's in the process of being formulated. It's not a formal one. We're still creating the syllabus for learners with disabilities. So it would be nice, thanks Giddy, it would be nice to have a program created for the girls that would have booklets and timetables, but I wanted to be, instead of it being abstract, more concrete, so more visual aids and stuff like that. And because they're learners with disability, in order for knowledge to sink in, we do a lot of repetition. So I'd like to complete the project twice a year and do first term, second term, and then third and fourth term. And then obviously attract more sponsors with the work that I'm doing. Next slide. So, okay, moving forward, my mission is that every girl deserves a chance, right? My vision is that every girl within that school will receive an opportunity for an adequate education and to be empowered, okay? And then, as I said, the whole point is obviously, hopefully one day, if possible, I could initiate this project to the extent that it could be carried out in other schools within my area of learning disabilities, or trialed in another school with learning disabilities, so that it can be introduced into the syllabus for the learners with disabilities on more of a national level. Okay, and then can we go to the next slide of acknowledgements? Okay. I would love to thank AMAP, especially Gidiboni, your girl, excuse me. I would like to thank Gidiboni so much. She's been so understanding and helpful and always checking in, and she ensured the success of this program because she encouraged us to follow our deadlines and everything. And also AMAP for the seed funding. Very much appreciate. I am so grateful for your guys' help because this now helps a lot more girls within the community, and it's less of a hindrance for them. So now that I've opened an avenue, that would be great. And I'll also like to thank AMAP for their mentorship. I had a really lovely mentor, Farah. She helped me through everything, planning, coordinating, creating a good proposal, writing letters, which was really awesome. And also I have mentors who've mentored me in this field as well, besides AMAP. And also I'll thank the volunteers for their assistance and the enthusiasm and willingness to help. But most in all, I just want to thank the donations that came from SUPADS. They donated pads for about 90 girls within the school, and each of them got 2 reusable paths that they could use. So it's more like we're moving towards a green side. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And next slide. Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mary-Anne, for that. Even if poverty isn't something that we are facing ourselves, it is really important that we do plenty to support those who experience it. Obviously, the first is to end the stigma behind menstrual cycle, contact government leaders to chip in, join an organization, and also donate our time and period products. So thank you very much, Mary-Anne.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, guys, for all your support.
Thank you. So the next speaker will be Wandile.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen.
Oh, okay. I'll just give you a few minutes.
Okay. Can you see it from your side?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, these apps tend to play with me sometimes, but I will get to it.
No worries. The floor is yours, Wandile.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am extremely grateful to be finally presenting my project. It has come with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But this is me, this is us presenting Voices of Africa, which is a podcast. And our slogan is Uniting in Change. And the reason why I chose this was because I firmly believe in having a transformational outlook towards leadership when we look at the future of Africa, and that's what inspired this. So I am Wandile Mpontshane, and I am the Africa Matters Ambassador for 2022, and I have decided to launch a podcast for my community engagement project. Introducing our why. So Voices of Africa was founded by Wandile Mpontshane as a platform for the youth to exchange, collaborate, and discuss the issues that the current youth are facing in the face of the 21st century, especially because we come from a post-COVID environment. So this is to raise awareness surrounding unemployment, because I do believe that the rise of it has caused a lot of the youth to feel despondent and not wanting to go after their careers, or feel like they have to neglect parts of themselves because they feel like there's no space for them to exist freely in chasing their dreams and their career goals. So that's why we decided to start the podcast. It's a platform essentially to ensure that the youth feels empowered to share their experiences and for them to feel validated in knowing that some of the experiences, as you find in your career, are going to be growing pains, but it's never in vain that you go through those experiences. So we have our Instagram page, where you can find us at Voices of Africa _. And so far we have launched 4 episodes that include various topics. From the first topic, we had Vumi Lutli, who was a graduate, and she was able to then explain or really synthesize what it means to be a graduate and the experiences in failing forward. That's the title of the first episode is called Fail Forward, where we encourage the youth to not be afraid of failure, but to step into the essence of wanting to fail forward, in that you learn lessons from that. And then our second episode was by one of our very own ambassadors, Lesego, where she got to share her experience on entrepreneurship. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? The challenges that you face, and what is required out of you to be passionate about your business. Of course, the entrepreneurial journey is not one that is straight and narrow, but there's a lot of twists and turns and bends. So how do you learn to become one with your business? And then our third episode was then provided by Tande Gambadi, and she is a Doctors Without Borders representative, and she is also part of a band. And crossing paths with her meant that she got to speak to us about the purpose of being, or rather the importance of having an adaptable spirit, a teachable spirit, and that, yes, of course, not all of our journeys are going to be the same, and that we're all going to go to school and get, a matric, and then go to university and have, the textbook definition of what life is essentially supposed to be when you are kickstarting a career. But in knowing that, she has a lot of identities to her. She's a mother. She was a mother at a very young age. So what does that mean? Does that mean you now neglect your aspirations to want to go forth and carry on your schooling journey because you're trying to become a parent? Or does it mean that you choose to be adaptable and you take life by the horns and reinforce what it means to have the spirit of vigor and perseverance in your life? And then the last episode was by me, and I got to talk about my Africa Matters experience. I think prior to becoming an ambassador, there was a lot of rejections that I faced because I was a graduate, and I felt as though there was no space for me to exist, or I felt like I had studied the wrong degree because the right doors or the right doors of opportunity for employment weren't opening themselves up for me. So that's when I felt like there was no hope for me, but Africa Matters was able to welcome me with open arms within the program, and I feel like I've grown and I've definitely changed over the past months. I'm not the same person that I was, and that's through built confidence as becoming a leader. So that's us. When we look at the audience then for the podcast, we see that the range was 100% female. And I think there's a part where I've skipped where it shows us that our age range is from the ages of 23 to 27 that have been listening to the podcast so long. So there is definitely areas for improvement in that, and showing that we can diversify the audience a lot more and have people of different identities listening to our podcast, and not only just the females, but also have our males and our non-binary people, to ensure that the podcast is more represented in that. There is the slide that shows that our age range right now, it shows that it's between the ages of 23 and 27 years old that are finding traction and attraction to our podcast at this time. So our podcast is available on Anchor FM. So it's an app called Anchor, and we are also available on Spotify. And we see that 60% of our listeners listen to Anchor, and then the 40% is from Spotify. So if you have any of these apps, then you have access to the podcast. We want to grow and expand into Apple Podcasts as well, just to ensure that everyone is catered for in that. All right, and then we get into the 3 successes of our podcast, and that we've managed to launch a platform that is a safe space for the youth. I think the increase of unemployment has left a lot of people feeling sort of secluded from society, in that if you get a person who has the textbook definition of going to school or having the privilege to go to school, then complete their studies in university, and then you get back home and then there's no jobs, there's always that one neighbor who's trying to find out, so you went to school and then what? Who's trying to invalidate the importance of education. So, and us having this podcast, we're able to really unpack the issues that we face in being a graduate, in being an entrepreneur, in being, a creative. What does that mean? How are we able to pour into our own cups and fill our own cups before we're able to pour into other people's cups, because that's what you find, is that you find yourselves giving yourself and giving your time, giving your energy, giving out so much of yourself, where you end up feeling lost, and you feel like the unemployment journey then takes up and morphs into your identity. So I think we've managed to create a platform in that. And then the second part is that we've also been able to have ideas and exchange those ideas that will plant the seed for a better future for the African continent. And this is not to discredit the good that is happening right now, but I think it's also in our hands as the youth to take the baton on and saying that we recognize that there are systemic challenges that we're facing. But what does that mean then for us if we have the baton in our hands now? How are we able to ensure that we're using the correct resources, we are using our skills correctly and networking with each other properly to ensure that the ideas that we find or the ideas that we exchange together are the ones that are going to cultivate that future for a better Africa. And then I do believe that we have established a young community or a small community of young leaders that are present and that are taking life and the opportunity that life presents, and that we're able to envision that better Africa. Because in as much as we're in the situation that we are in now, where Africa is seen as that continent that constantly needs foreign aid, or that constantly needs external countries to come and assist us, but we also do have the young, the ones that are existing now that want to have the platform to exist, to have the platform to exchange, to have the platform to connect with each other and collaborating with ideas. And then the challenges that are faced in having to launch a podcast in South Africa, in a place where load shedding has been a prominent theme that has been essentially our daily bread at this point, because the schedules are constantly changing. You'll get a notification that, hey, 15 minutes time you have load shedding, and I have maybe asked a guest to record a podcast with me, or podcast episode, then all of a sudden I can't do that because I need Wi-Fi to be able to bring the guest onto the link and then record the podcast. So it's been difficult working around the load shedding. And then secondly, we also have the clash of time schedules. Throughout this process, I've recently started working, and I got my first job. So that takes up a good chunk of my day, where between 8 and 5 o'clock, I'm based at the office. So that would mean that I'm only able to then connect with my guests after hours, which would mean it's between 6 and maybe 9:30, and then on the weekends as well. So that part also was a little bit difficult, but I was able to persevere and ensure that everything falls into place the way that it's supposed to. And I will be very honest, I suffered a lot with self-doubt throughout this process. I just felt like, is there a need for a podcast like this to exist? Is there a need for me to bring guests on and talk about that particular topic? How is it different from anything that's not there on YouTube, that isn't there on your Instagram and your TikTok and all of those things? So I felt there was a lot of those intrusive thoughts that were coming into play, but I think I was able to combat it in realizing that when I executed my project and I had the conversation with my guests, you're able to see the mindsets that people have, and that offers a different lens of thinking into a situation where you think that you've been down and out for, but the moment that someone else sheds a light or a different perspective, you also then able to alter your thinking. All right, and then my most memorable moments of this had to be the execution parts of the podcast and recording the episode, because for me, it felt as though, because I was suffering a lot from self-doubt, it felt like there was no place for this. It's such a podcasting, and you have your people that have the equipment and the skills to be able to edit. And I've never edited any audio in my life before, but I felt like, let me take the plunge, let me do my best, let me prove my intrusive thoughts wrong, that I am able to have control and take ownership of my own idea. Because I do believe that when I started with Africa Matters, my initial thoughts was that I was going to develop an app where there's potential entrepreneurs and creators that want either a skill or they need a resource, and then it's through that exchange. But then I realized that I have no idea how to create an app. And then Stuart, my group lead, had suggested that, why don't we make this idea more bite-sizable? Not that we're giving up on it, but it's starting from the ground up and letting it move into what it's supposed to be over time. So I think that part also has been very memorable. And then we also find that I was able to engage with people from different walks of life and hearing the storms that they've had to weather to be where they are today. Because you'll find that there's a lot of people that will go through adversities, hardships, and challenges, and they find that, okay, that's their sign to stop and give up and just not even let life carry out the way that it's supposed to. But I think having to interact with those people has been one of the most invaluable experiences that I've had on my podcast. All right, and then when we look at the execution, so the podcast is still in its infant stage. That definitely does have the potential to grow. We're currently sitting at 31, but now it's 33 followers on its Instagram page and a total of 13, which has grown now to 17 plays on Anchor. So it does alter the numbers of how many people are actually engaging with our platform. So we're looking between 47 and 50 people that are engaging with the platform. So the podcast has been able to bring insight and understanding to what it means to be young in a post-COVID world, especially looking at the fact that being young and being African should never be seen as a challenge, but rather to be honored in that you're able to then inspire others and also have the energy and the vigor to still go after your dreams and your passions. And I think our voices do matter in what we have to say for ourselves and what we want for our futures. So it's important that we continue to have open and honest conversations about how we plan to make the necessary change. It's not up to our governments, it's not up to these private sectors for them to determine what our future looks like, but it's to us as the youth, as the people, as the young leaders. What does that mean? How do we identify our future to be, and what does that look like for us? And then I think another part of the execution was great, that we were able to cover a broad spectrum of topics that will be beneficial. So if we're looking into the future of the podcast, this means that we need to have more representation from other countries, not only South Africa, but also having different voices of Africa, like the podcast is. So that is the long-term vision, is that we're going to pass the mic to different leaders within different countries, and it might not be a physical mic that we're passing on, but for them to just be on the podcast and for us to exchange those ideas. So when we look at the future of Voices of Africa, like I did say, it means that we want to yes.
So sorry, can you just try to wrap up? Your time is actually up.
Okay, I'm going to be quick with the sign. Okay, this means that we're passing the mic to other African countries to provide insights into the challenges and what it means to overcome those challenges. So next year, by November, hopefully, we can have an expo where we get to showcase the talents that have been on the podcast this far. So, and thanks, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Africa Matters for allowing us to have a platform for us to change and exchange in our ideas. And I'd also like to thank my guests, because they were able to come through and go out of their comfort zones. And also I'd like to thank my group lead, Stuart, who was always able to provide a lending hand and provide suggestions. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wandile, for that. You know, the narrative of graduates begging for jobs has constantly become an issue because, you know, youth unemployment has a negative effect on the individual and family, but also on the broader community in the form of, you know, serious economic and social consequences. So thank you for that presentation. So our next speaker is Charline. Charline, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. So there's your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. I am Charline Douanla Feuyem from the Republic of Cameroon.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, God.
Yeah. The topic of my presentation is restoration of domestic and sexual violence and the impact of on the mental health of women in Cameroon. Next slide, please. Okay, let the statistics speak for us. Then, according to the Association for the Fight Against Violence Against Women, regarding violence against women in Cameroon, in 2011, statistics show that at the national level, 55% of women aged between 15 and 50 have already experienced various forms of violence at least since the age of 15. 20% of women were forced to have their first sexual intercourse. 15% of women reported having experienced violence while pregnant. 29% of women reported having been victims of sexual violence at any time in their lives. Next slide, please. According to the United Nations, 70% of women worldwide experience violence in their lifetime, and 1 in 5 women is a victim of rape or attempted rape. More than 130 million girls and women have undergone female genital mutilation, mostly in Africa. In Cameroon, 54.54% of women are victims of psychological abuse. 50.24% of economic violences. 24% of adolescents girls have undergone wrist ironing, and 1.4% have been victims of female genital mutilation. Next slide, please. In the couple, 45% of the women have suffered physical violence, 20% sexual violence, and 42% moral violence. 51.4% of the violent acts were committed by the husband and or partners. 48% of the victims declared that they have never sought help, and 29% of the victims never told anyone about the violence they suffer or experience. Next slide, please. To solve this problem, I've undertaken to create a survey to know the prevalence rate of this scourge and to know the rate of people interested in the topic. Then I started looking for experts in the field, including psychiatrists, psychotherapists, and manager of shelters for women victims of gender-based violences, who edify each participant on the issues, and they provide recommendation and sensitization to reduce the scourge, and why not banish it. After that, I host 2 virtual health conferences. I raised awareness through the conferences, and I gave a voice to the survivors. Next slide, please. Okay, our first health conferences was held on November 5th, 2022 on the theme or the topic prevalence rates, incidents, and management of victims of domestic and sexual violences. You have in the table on the left the program of the two conferences, and on the right the poster of communication on the first conference with the speaker. Just below you have the link to follow the recording of this conference. Next slide, please. The first speaker of our first conference talked about prevalence rates, incidents of domestic and sexual violence on the mental health of women in Cameroon. It was held by Dr. Basegana Chujonasiki, who is a medical doctor, psychiatrist, and psychotherapist, and also the head of the psychiatry department of the Cameroon Army Force Health Services. And the second speaker deal with the care of victim of domestic and sexual violences. It was done by Dr. Tugem Michael, who is a medical doctor and a psychiatrist in a polyclinic in Douala. So Douala is economical capital of Cameroon. Next slide, please. Our second health conference was held on November 12, 2022 on the theme Challenges of Socio-Professional Reintegration of Victims of Domestic Violences. And you have the table of the program of the two conferences. And the right, the post of communication on the second conferences with the speaker. Just below you have the link to follow the recording of these second conferences. Next slide, please. Okay, as I was saying, our second session took place on November 12, 2022 on the theme Challenges of Socio-Professional Reintegration of Victims of Domestic Violences. It was presented by Mr. Siachwa, who is clinical psychiatrist. And the second part of the session was dedicated to the anonymous testimony of two gender-based violence survivors who told us about the circumstances of their tragedy and how they are women of integrity in today's society, starting from nothing to become indomitable lioness. Next slide, please. Okay. The project successful points were particularly the high interest of people for this webinar and this important social issue. Exactly 115 people registered in both sessions. The satisfaction of the success of organizing such conference, although I was afraid that it would not interest many people. Keep calm, and let me tell you that the memorable moment of the project was when anonymous survivors of gender-based violence testified and spoke about how resilient they are today. I think everyone said the word after their passage. The comments were full of emotion and awareness. Next slide, please. The main challenges of this project was determining the topic or the theme of the different health conferences, finding potential speakers, and mobilizing participants. Next slide, please. The impact of the project was great. As I was saying, 115 people participated at the two sessions. Among others, we received registration from people living in America, Africa, Asia, Europe, and let's say we went around the world with these health lectures. The project has contributed through the statistic to an awakening of awareness and through the exchange to insight the participants to reach out so the victim of this violence near them. It will contribute in the days to come to support and finance these victims so that they develop income generating activities. And we want the project to be sustainable, and for that, if you have partners who can support us in this drive to help the women and girls who are in the shelters to develop income generating activities, that will be ideal. This is in order to sustain the project and have a great social impact even outside of Cameroon. Next slide, please. The next step is to make the project sustainable by organizing frequent paid conferences in order to generate the donation of funds to support shelter and survival of domestic and sexual violences, and to advocate with African Matters Initiative and donors for supporting the fight against gender-based violences through microfinancing. Next slide, please. I'm grateful to the following organization and individuals for their support. I express my gratitude to the AMAP team, without whom I will never have done it or finished this training. I've never been so much considered in a training like the one I spent with you. You are the unique model that Africa needs, and you have transmitted to us this devotion to work. A special thanks to Laikwa Martins, to Kediboni, and to Stuart. I also want to thank the Smile for All Cameroon Association, who supported me in somewhat difficult time of my life, in my life and my family. A big special thanks to my mentor, Dr. Jessica Fumna Kenton, who spared many effort to make my training a success. She has been as much a mentor in my professional lives as in my social and personal life. Thank you to Women in Africa International and as well as Kempton Communication for having accompanied my project by broadcasting on the platform and by providing effective technical support. I also want to thank my fellow third AMAP cohort, especially those of Group 3 SEP. Thank you to all the experts who took their time to teach us about the most interesting topic. Thank you to all the partners who believe in this project and funded its realization. Thank you, Leone Olivier, for your battle to make us participate in the great African debate. Big thanks to donor. I hope that your collaboration will be even more sustainable, because even if you already know that you're helping many communities to create ideas that will allow them to grow, I'm sure of one thing, it is that I carry within me the dream that African wants to achieve, because I'm the impact that my beautiful country, Cameroon, my beautiful continent, Africa, and my beautiful planet is waiting for to stand up as one man and act to stop this domestic and sexual violence, just because I am the one they have been waiting for. Next slide, please. So, thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Charline. Freedom from violence is really a fundamental right, and gender-based violence undermines a person's sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and it affects not only the physical health, but the mental health, and may lead to self-harm, isolation, depression, and suicidal attempts. So thank you for that wonderful presentation. Our next speaker will be Margaret. Margaret, are you ready? Margaret? Margaret, I can't hear you. Margaret? I'm not sure if Margaret will be able to present.
I think maybe if you can go over to the Q&A and then let's just see. Okay. Okay, so she's showing everything. Okay, cool. That.
Okay. Should we wait for Margaret?
Yeah, I think we can just, on like the next, 2 minutes or so, we can just check.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Margaret.
Okay. Sorry, it was something had happened from the tech side.
Oh, yeah, no worries, I understand. The floor is yours, Margaret. Just waiting for you to share your presentation.
Okay.
And then you can proceed.
Good evening, everyone. I am Margaret Wanjiru from Kenya. So happy and proud to be an AMAP ambassador this year. Yep, next slide. So basically, my project was on focusing on this problem in the community, whereby we as youths, considering the fact that we are 75% in Africa as well as in Kenya, we have the majority of the population in our countries, but still we are the ones who are really misplaced and not considered in our systems and everything. And especially from the basic thing that's considered like our right, that's the education system, which is failing us in many ways. And so it ends up bringing all these issues that is unemployment, inadequate employment, knowledge, talent nurturing, education system really, really wanting, and even financial management as a major issue among youths in Kenya and world at large. We recently had a survey in Kenya and we saw that many youths and even other people beyond 18 to 35 years, a lot of them were shortlisted in the debt and also couldn't take loans from even this banking industry simply because of the loans that it couldn't be able to pay. And is led by the lack of good secure job systems and structures, as well as the economy due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the Ukraine war. A lot has happened, and we, being the major part of the population, are really suffering, considering that our employment industry is really wanting and lacking in terms of absorbing us as we get to graduate by the day. We've had many stories and cases of people getting to be the car wash guys, the nannies and all that, and they really can't even be able to get money enough to be able to sustain them and their families, to be able to even get like maybe savings and all these major things, or even having a health coverage, simply because a lot is happening. The employers are taking advantage of us, but it's still because of the fact that we are getting education that can't be able to help us see beyond employment or seeking to be entrepreneurs as a person. Next slide. So I sought to focus on these training sessions with students in a place called Kayole slums. That was my first time to go there, and I was welcomed with like, your phone, where it's not safe, so put it in your bag. Even your clothes, someone can just walk around and tell you in broad daylight that give me that jacket, give me those shoes, give me your bag, your phone, and you can't do anything because maybe they have a gun or a knife. And so like it was a whole scary thing, considering it being my first slum life alone, going there by myself and all these things. And so I focused on training these young men and ladies in a high school called Greenland High School in Kayole slums on personality, getting to understand themselves, understanding that who am I as a person, what values do I have, what are the skill sets, capabilities, and potential do I have? What's my purpose here on earth, and how can I be able to work from my high school level, be able to select the right subjects, to be able to focus even in specializing in the campus life on what specific area that I can be able to actually, even as I finish campus, not just get employment, but be able, if I lack to be employed or absorbed in the system, what can I use these skills, because they are inborn in me, to be able to create an entrepreneurial opportunity for myself. Also getting to understand about time management and how each and every, even these sessions, I'll always tell them that if you didn't get out of this door without even one thing that you've learned, imagine you wasted my time and I wasted your time. And we can never be able to recover all these things in our life, because time is very crucial in our lifetime. Also getting to understand the habits, how they can be changed in like the 60-day way. So we will do assignments of them to be able to see bad habits that they have and how the steps they can use to be able to change those habits. Networking skills, in terms of just getting to have mentors, people they can learn from, and be able to be nurtured in areas that they can be able to specialize in the future. Because for me, it has helped me as well in many things, considering this year and the lessons I've learned through AMAP. It has helped me a lot. Also getting for them to see that they're in a slum, living in a slum, and there are many problems they are facing, and how can they use those problems to be able to see solution out of them, opportunities out of them, and be able to take advantage of that and be entrepreneurs by themselves. Also getting to see the aspect of social capital, getting to have friends who are investing in their lives, and also them also investing in their friends as well, because we have many people, especially in the slums, who are following peer pressure friends, and a lot of them are indulging in drugs, school dropouts, and many other things that are not helpful in their lives. And so they end up in the streets. And considering the fact that they come from a family that's not stable, they'll end up following the poverty cycle in their lineages. So also getting to tell them that the importance of getting opportunities in school, especially even in high school, because we have some in our organization who come for volunteership and internships. At this early level in high school, it's not too late or too early for them to be able to indulge and be able to be upskilled in many things, and also be able to have a space. Even when they finish, they'll be able to get opportunities out there. Aligning with their career paths in relation with their purpose and their passion, also skill sets. And also it was really interesting and nice just getting to work on them to be able to see that they can be someone, and they are already someone who is of value to their community. Next slide. So these are the two opportunities I had shared. The first one was under TOESL Elevate workshop for the teacher who had worked with Mr. Tolu. No, not Mr. Tolu, Mr. George Yogo, who was a volunteer as well with me, that we were going to the secondary school. So it was for him, because he's a teacher in primary school, to be able to empower their teachers, because it was their English primary teachers and high school teachers who are being taught. So I shared with him for him to register with his team to be able to apply. I left for him to be able to follow up on the rest. And the second one was on the Greenland High School. I shared with the principal there. It was called Legacy International project, whereby they will select 3 participants from 3 or 4 countries in Africa, and Kenya was inclusive. It's all about environmental conservation. So next year they'll have a 3 years training, upskilling, and be able to come back to their communities and be able to be impacted and be of impact to their community. So I left for them to be able to apply and even choose people whom they can be able to work with in terms of the application. The next slide. So my 3 successes was networking. I really learned the importance of the skill of networking myself with people, because in September and August, that's when I decided now to focus on identifying like people whom I can work with, because where I wanted to work to start my project in Nakuru, it was very fun. It will inconvenience me, especially because of my work schedule, because even sometimes I go to work on weekends, so it will be difficult for me to implement. So I decided to work in Kenya, and then someone contacted me and was planning to start a project in Kayole. So the networking helped me be able to find a place where I could go in Kayole to the Greenland High School. And also doing the CP project, what this thing has taken a toll on me. It was at one point you're like, why did I do this? Why am I doing this? Why am I not giving up? But still, when you get to remember the people you're interacting with, the people you're impacting, and it's a dream and a vision that you've always wanted. It was a step for me that I decided to take despite the fears, despite the internal conflicts and all that, and feeling sometimes overwhelmed because of my work and even the project as well. It was really encouraging for me. And even having people to support me, to encourage me to be able to even help me see through that I've already started it and it's a great thing to be able to continue doing. So also another success story is that working with the 30 young students, because I will work with 30 students in the high school, where we would interact with them. We were given 2 sessions on Wednesdays and Fridays. So I would go on Fridays because it was convenient for me to go. And also on Wednesdays, Mr. Yogo and Pastor Elisha will go there. Next slide. Next slide, please. So one memorable moment for me was getting to interact with those young people every Friday and working with them, especially when you get to ask them, like, what did you learn last week? The assignment that we had, what did you do? And seeing that actually people, even despite them having no notebooks to write on, because sometimes the teachers will give them a full script to write on it, you will feel really great seeing that they're taking these things seriously and they want to change their lives. It inspired me to go, and even if there was this, that it's a very insecure place considering what I was welcomed with, and actually 2 of my teachers were mugged. For me, it was not like theirs, but I was also mugged in town. But it encouraged me feeling that there's a future being prepared, being nurtured out of all these things. And all these sessions also got to prepare me for public speaking speech in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, last month, where I got to represent the African youth and the female gender in relations to democracy in Africa. Next slide, please. I impacted 30 students in the school who were selected. And I was intending to at least impact 43, but I got to get this 30. From the post high school, we were to work with 10, but since they feed from a hand to mouth system in the slums, they were asking, like, are you guys going to pay us to come and attend this session? So it was kind of hard because of the financial constraints. So we couldn't go ahead with them. But when we get funds, we at least we can be able to work with them, be able to give them at least something for them to feel that they have not wasted their day there, that they can be able to actually go feed their families out of that. Next slide. In what way did the project alleviate the issue? Getting to work with these students and get them to understand that who they are as a person, getting to understand that they can be able to change their bad habits and be better people and focus on good habit skills. Importance of getting to work with people who impact them positively, not just friends, but even mentors, and in investing in social capital, because it helps them even in the future when they need things like networking to work on a particular project or partnership. Those social capital are the ones to invest in and be able to help you. Getting to work on environmental conservation, understanding the essence of that, and also the essence of volunteership, talent identification and nurturing, and also get them to tell them that they don't be dream killers of each other. Getting to understand the essence of proactiveness and how they can stand out as a person and be able to get even opportunities, like for me, how I got it to go to Ethiopia, among other, all of this. Okay, next. So how to improve my project is working to help with youth having to give them a hand-on experience in the community, which we didn't have a lot of time because it was time for them to do their KCSE, so we couldn't interfere with that timetable. But it's one thing that I would have learned. I would have hoped for them to be able to have a hands-on experience in the community, for them to be able to actually see all these things that we're talking about. They can be able to work on as a project, especially on maybe having a car wash drive, cleaning the markets in their slums and all these things, and be able to see that they can be able to do fundraising and be able to work on their projects through maybe the fundraising that we have done. And also when we get grants and donations, that we can be able to even do some granting for this idea proposals from the youth and be able to help them be able to have projects that come in place. Next slide. My next step is on ensuring that I work on my networking for partnerships, possible partnerships and donations, grant applications to support the coursework, reflect on the whole process and see the strength, which will be better due to failure or lack of. I also got to see that we actually had another project called the Cyber Girls Initiative, which I was to start, but I'm actually a pioneer student, but we are working on 3 more who will be able to be onboarded to learn about cyber security, which we are still waiting for, that we partnered with Cisco that are training them for free. It's a process which we are still working on with the guy who connected me to Kayole and hoping for the best. That's when it gets to 43 students. Next. I really acknowledge these people that were of great benefit and made this thing a success. I will thank God very much, because I wouldn't be able to do all this from protection and everything and be able to work on this. The Army team, the AMAP team in training for all those months and being able to actually help us through. Oh, my supervisor Stuart can tell it all. I've been texting him, calling him. His WhatsApp can tell stories of how it has been overwhelmed with many things. For me to follow up, ask him, what next? It's not uploading. What do I do? My project, I don't know. I'm going somewhere. What do I do? But he was really supportive and helping be able to focus and be able to put everything into strategy. And also my family for being able to help me not give up, especially when I felt overwhelmed with both works on both ends. Yeah, that's basically from my end. I don't know if I have time to share my video though.
Oh, thank you very much. Now you have a video to share. Stuart, are you able to share the video in the end? Thank you very much, Charline, for the presentation. There's a saying that the devil finds work for idle hands, and this translates to you must keep our young people engaged. So it is very important that we give them ways to legitimately develop their talents, whether it is through music, movies, agriculture, IT, whatever it is that they find, we must just give them the way to express it. So if there's a video, the technical guy will share the video.
Margaret, can you share your screen?
Okay.
The ambassadors have put in into their projects. It's really fascinating to see people that are spearheading change, and they're not allowing situations to continue to progress and get worse, but they are wanting to be part of the change. And I think a huge shout out has to go to Africa Matters for carrying an initiative like this, because there's nothing like this that currently exists, where the youth is able to exchange and be part of a platform such as this. So I think that's my one contribution. Shout out to us as the ambassadors of 2022. We did it, you guys. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Oh, that was very nice, Wandile. Thank you for that. Any words of encouragement from another ambassador? Quote of 2022. Questions?
I think that if there isn't any questions that can, just close off. If any other of any sort. Okay. Yeah, I think that we close it off. Okay. All of these things, are always quite a big experience. I think that the AMAP team, it is so, it fills us with so much pride to see the work that ambassadors are doing on the ground and see the tangible impact that it is having on the leaders out to impact. And I think it's to the abilities of the ambassadors. Wow. Just I think that it is just people see that we too are the one that we all the is try to be able to make change happen. And so
You're breaking. We can't hear you properly.
honestly, yes, I am now. This is honestly just a sign that the session should come to a close. Yeah. But anyway, as I was just saying there, to thank you to everyone who will end up, seeing this pre-recording. And I hope that it has allowed you to see the abilities of our ambassadors and actually be able to see that there is actual work being done, and all that you need to do is just support and applaud it. So thank you so much. If you would like to see more information and more work from us here at Africa Matters, and especially within the Africa Matters Ambassadors Program, please do feel free to email us at AMAP@africamattersinitiative.com. From the AMAP team, we thank you and we wish you a very, 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 very happy day further. And thank you so much for engaging with us.
Thank you, everyone.